The most important part of any conversation is usually what no one says. A slight shift in someone's pitch, a micro-expression that vanishes in under a second. Emotionally intelligent people notice these signals with surprising accuracy, not through some mysterious gift, but through a learnable set of skills most people never develop. The question is what exactly they're picking up on, and why it reveals far more than words alone. In 1997, psychologists John Mayer and Peter Salovey structured these observations into a scientific model known as the four-branch theory of emotional intelligence. They defined it not as an innate, mystical trait, but as a distinct, learnable cluster of cognitive abilities. This developmental hierarchy begins with perceiving emotions accurately, which then allows a person to use those feelings to guide thought, understand complex emotional meanings, and ultimately manage emotional states. Psychologist Daniel Goleman later translated these concepts into 5 core competencies: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skill. Under Goleman's model, empathy is far from passive intuition or telepathic mind reading. Instead, it operates through 2 distinct components. First, cognitive empathy, or perspective taking, is the mental capacity to reconstruct another person's internal point of view. Second, affective empathy, or emotional resonance, is the physiological ability to experience a biological echo of what another person feels. This systematic skill set is not fixed at birth. It can be measured and trained. Psychometric tests like the MSCEIT show that emotional perception is a highly reliable cognitive process, while evidence-based training methods like the Yale Center's ruler approach prove that systematically practicing these steps improves daily social awareness. When these distinct branches work together, they transform emotional intelligence from a vague personality concept into a sharp, practical instrument. Understanding this basic architecture explains why some individuals seem to notice everything. They are simply employing a highly coordinated psychological toolkit that operates beneath the surface of everyday life. Structured training programs show that emotional intelligence behaves less like static intuition and more like a physical muscle. Systematic exercises prove that targeted practice yields measurable shifts in human perception. Research indicates that 8 to 12 hours of experiential, feedback-rich training can produce significant improvements in emotional recognition and regulation. In randomized trials, participants using structured, self-paced tools achieved distinct gains on ability-based assessments like MSCEIT. Yet, the foundation of accurately observing other people begins with looking inward. External observation becomes reliable only when a person recognizes their own internal state first. Without this self-reflective baseline, personal anxiety, fatigue, or bias can easily distort social judgment. Developing this internal awareness engages neural pathways in the insula and prefrontal cortex, which filter out subjective projection. By stabilizing our own emotional state first, we prevent internal reactions from clouding our view of the people around us. This structured discipline transforms quiet observation from an unpredictable, mysterious knack into a reliable, grounded skill set. The first external data points of human interaction arrive through the ears and eyes, long before a speaker consciously chooses their words. In 2003, researchers Patrick Juslin and Petri Laka established that vocal prosody, the specific combination of pitch, loudness, tempo, and timbre, forms a reliable acoustic code for emotional states. A sudden rise in pitch or a slight acceleration in speech rate often signals excitement or anxiety, while a drop in volume combined with longer pauses indicates sadness or withdrawal. These acoustic shifts happen automatically, reflecting changes in the autonomic nervous system. Simultaneously, the face provides a constant, rapid stream of nonverbal information. Paul Ekman's research demonstrated that 7 basic facial expressions are recognized across all human cultures. When a person attempts to mask their true feelings, the underlying emotion often leaks out anyway. These involuntary facial micro-expressions flash across the face in less than half a second, revealing a fleeting gap between what a person actually feels and what they choose to project. Observing these brief shifts does not grant telepathic accuracy. Human behavior is too complex for simple formulas, and a dry throat can cause a vocal crack just as easily as hidden grief. Rather, emotional intelligence improves basic signal detection. By noticing discrepancies, like a tight, high-pitched voice paired with an outwardly calm smile, an observer gathers clues. These signals do not provide immediate answers. They simply highlight where to ask a careful question. The human brain does not process these signals in isolation. Neuroscientific research shows that areas like the amygdala and the extrastriate body area work together to integrate facial expressions, vocal tones, and physical postures within milliseconds. This means body language frequently validates or complicates what a person actually says. A physical shift, such as closed shoulders, folded arms, or a slight retreat from a shared space, can convey as much as an unfinished sentence. In a professional setting, this shows up in changing patterns of participation. When a normally active colleague begins pulling back physically, leaning away from the table, reducing their natural gestures, or remaining quiet during discussions, it often indicates cognitive fatigue or emotional exhaustion. Social interactions follow a similar pattern. At a gathering, a close friend might smile and insist they are doing well, yet an observer might notice their shoulders remain rigid, their gaze constantly shifts away, or their hand slightly trembles while holding a cup. Noticing these combined channels does not mean diagnosing someone's internal state or assuming their thoughts. The goal of this attention is observation, not analysis. When a flat voice contradicts an upbeat word, or tense posture contradicts a polite smile, it simply reveals an inconsistency. Instead of jumping to conclusions, this coordinated awareness provides the basis for a supportive, quiet inquiry, allowing the other person to share what they need to in their own time. In romantic relationships, these patterns often unfold over days or weeks rather than single moments. A shift is rarely marked by a sudden argument. Instead, it shows up in digital communication. Long, detailed text messages gradually shrink to one-word replies, and response times stretch from minutes to hours. An emotionally intelligent observer registers this increased latency and brevity, but they do not immediately assume a crisis. They recognize that these changes are merely clues, not conclusions. This restraint is important because human observation is highly vulnerable to cognitive biases. Confirmation bias can easily lead a person to search only for evidence that confirms their anxieties, while the fundamental attribution error might prompt them to blame their partner's character rather than considering external stressors. Rather than staging an accusation, a mindful partner uses these observations to pause, reflect, and eventually ask a clear, open-ended question, leaving space for the other person to explain what is happening in their own time. An observation is a starting point rather than a final diagnosis. Reading a room or noticing a change in behavior provides a clue. It does not yield absolute knowledge. Instead, high emotional intelligence relies on a clear boundary, replacing assumptions with gentle verification. Rather than declaring what someone feels, an observer uses their awareness to frame a supportive, permission-based question. Techniques like reflective listening allow a person to mirror what they observe, such as a quieter vocal tone, and ask for clarification without judgment. This choice turns quiet observation from an act of silent surveillance or mind reading into a direct bridge for human connection. The goal of noticing is never to analyze or categorize others from a distance. Knowing when to look closer simply helps one offer support, letting the other person define their own experience. In an increasingly noisy world, the quiet act of paying attention is a choice. Emotional intelligence isn't mind reading, it is simply the decision to look closer and listen deeper. Ultimately, the most powerful thing we can notice is each other. What will you choose to see today?